As we are wrapping up 2025, I want to talk about 5 pieces of career advice that sound wise, feel comforting, and get repeated constantly. And I want you, as a pragmatic candidate, to abandon all of them in 2026. Not because they are completely wrong, but because they are incomplete. And incomplete advice is often more dangerous than no advice at all, because it gives you the illusion that you are doing the right thing when you are actually setting yourself up for frustration. So, if you consider yourself a career pragmatist, someone who wants to build a career based on reality rather than beautiful slogans, this video is for you. Hey, career pragmatist. If you are new here, I'm Natalia, a top business school career coach turned AI entrepreneur. And as we close out 2025 and move into 2026, I have been reflecting on the career advice that I hear repeated most often, both in my coaching practice and across the content I see online. So here's what I've noticed. Poor career advice spreads easily because it's simple, comforting, and repeatable. It fits nicely on a motivational poster and sells well. And it makes people feel like they have a clear direction. But when you actually try to apply it to your real career with real constraints and real trade offs, it falls apart. And that gap between the slogan and the reality is where people get stuck, frustrated, and confused about why things are not working. So today, I'm breaking down 5 pieces of advice that I want you to consciously abandon as you move into 2026. Because I believe you deserve better frameworks for thinking about your career. Let's go. Number one, follow your passion. This one gets repeated constantly, especially to young professionals and career changers. The idea is that if you find what you're passionate about and build your career around it, work will feel effortless and fulfilling. And look, I understand the appeal. Who wouldn't want to wake up every day excited about their work? But here's the problem. Passion is a lagging indicator, not a leading one. It usually follows competence, not the other way around. Let me give you a personal example. So, my passion is opera. I love opera. I go to major opera festivals. When I'm sitting in the audience, listening to a great performance, I feel completely transported. It's one of the places where I genuinely lose track of time. Does that mean I should become an opera singer? Well, absolutely not. And anyone who has heard me sing would agree that it would be a complete disaster for everyone involved. So the idea that passion should dictate your career path is flawed from the start because passion doesn't always align with skill, market demand, or practical opportunity. But here's the deeper issue. When you follow your passion too early, before you have built competence or understood how the market works, you often end up frustrated and broke because passion doesn't pay the bills. Skills that solve problems pay the bills. And there is another side to this that I talked about in my video on 4 lessons from 6 months of solo entrepreneurship. When you do work that you are genuinely passionate about, you can end up working constantly because you're always on floor. There is no natural stopping point. Passion doesn't reduce work, it removes boundaries. And that can burn you out fast if you are not careful. So here's a pragmatic reframe. Instead of following your passion, build skills in area where there is a market demand, develop competence, and then see what you start to enjoy as you get better at it. Passion often emerges from mastery, not the other way around. I didn't know I would enjoy building content, organizing workshops, or training professionals on career management. I didn't even know that that career existed when I started. I wasn't trained as a teacher. I did not study education or pedagogy. I started because I wanted to be a traditional one on one coach. But as I developed those skills and explored different areas of this field, I discovered that I really enjoy group sessions, content creation, research, and teaching at scale. That passion came after competence, not before. So in 2026, abandon the idea that you need to find your passion first. Instead, focus on building valuable skills and let passion emerge as you develop mastery. That's the pragmatic path. Number two, hard work will be noticed. This one is particularly dangerous because it sounds so reasonable. Work hard, deliver results, and people will recognize your value, right? Wrong, or at least incomplete. I recently worked with a client, a VP level executive who had been at the same company for 25 years. He was finally considering a move, and when I asked him about his network, he admitted that he hadn't been actively networking for years. He had an internal network, of course, people inside the company knew him, but externally, he didn't work on it purposefully. And when we started mapping out his connections, he realized he knew more people than he initially thought. But all of those relationships needed to be reactivated and reestablished. And here's what he told me. I always thought my hard work and my results would speak for themselves. I didn't think I needed to network or position myself. That mindset is common, and it's costing people opportunities. So here's the reality: effort and outcomes are not the same thing. And outcomes without visibility are invisible. You can work 60 hours per week, deliver excellent results, and still be overlooked for promotions, opportunities, and recognition if no one knows what you are doing or how to talk about your contributions. Hard work is necessary, but it's not sufficient. You also need visibility, positioning, and narrative. You need people to understand what you do, why it matters, and how it connects to broader goals. Silent effort stays silent, and in a world where everyone is busy and distracted, if you are not actively communicating your value, people will assume you are doing fine, but not exceptional. So in 2026, abandon the idea that hard work alone will get you noticed. Instead, focus on building visibility alongside your effort. Share what you are working on. Connect your work to outcomes that matter to the organization. Build relationships with people who can advocate for you. Hard work is a foundation, but visibility is what turns that foundation into career progress. Number three, there is a perfect career path. People talk about their careers as if they follow the clear, intentional plan. They post on LinkedIn about how everything led to this moment, or how every experience prepared me for where I am now. Well, that's retroactive storytelling. It's not how careers actually work. Real careers are messy. You take a job that seems like a good idea and it turns out to be a mistake. You pivot into something unexpected because an opportunity appeared. You try something, learn from it, and adjust. And here's my question: what does perfect even mean in the context of career? How do you define it? What are the criteria? Is it money, impact, work life balance, prestige, growth opportunities? And even if you define it for yourself, how can you be sure that it cannot get any better? That you have achieved that perfection? The reality is that you build your career by testing things, learning what works, and adjusting as you go. It's not about discovering the perfect path. It's about building your way forward. Prototype, you iterate, you learn. So in 2026, abandon the idea that you need to find the perfect career path. Instead, focus on building skills, testing opportunities, and staying flexible enough to adjust as you learn more about what you value and what the market rewards. Strategy matters more than certainty. Number 4, stability comes from one employer. When I first heard that idea, I was like, really? And then they went on to say that it was true for our parents' generation. And again, I was like, really? My mom changed 4 employers. My dad changed 5 before he eventually opened his own business at the age of 45. So for my parents, and definitely not for me, this idea was never really a reality. But when I moved to Spain, I was genuinely surprised by how many people had stayed in the same organization for 20, 25, even 30 years, sometimes in the very same position. So it made sense where this statement was coming from. This brings me to the first important point. This belief is very culturally loaded. I have seen it play out very differently depending on where you are in the world. And second, and this is a key, even if you come from a country where those loan employment records were once real, I want you to abandon this belief in 2026. The job market has changed. The moment your role stops being profitable or strategically important, that loyalty disappears. Think Salesforce. For years, they built their image around the Ohana culture, a Hawaiian idea of family, belonging, and taking care of your people. They talked about being one big family. But when profits came under pressure, that same company announced major cost cutting and laid off thousands of employees. The employer brand said family, but the business decision said numbers first. Remember the line from The Godfather? It's not personal, it's business. There you go. So the idea that stability comes from staying with one employer is a myth. Real stability comes from having transferable skills, a strong reputation, and a network that extends beyond your current company. If your entire professional identity is tied to one organization, you are not stable, you are dependent. And dependence is risk, not security. So in 2026, abandon the idea that loyalty to one employer equals stability. Instead, focus on building skills that are valuable across companies, industries, and markets. Build a reputation that travels with you. Cultivate relationships outside your current organization. Your career security comes from what you can do and who you know, not from how long you have been in one place. Number 5, network when you need a job. Let me come back to that VP client I mentioned earlier. After 25 years at the same company, he is now considering a move. And his network? Well, it needs to be reactivated. He didn't maintain relationships intentionally over the years because he did not think he would need them. And now that he is ready to make a move, he is realizing that building a network from scratch, or even worse, reactivating dormant relationships, is much harder than maintaining them along the way. Here's the difference. Networking is about building relationships over time. It's about staying visible, staying curious, and staying connected to people in your field. It's a long-term investment. What most people do instead is panic networking. They wait until they need a job, and then they reach out to people they haven't spoken to in years, asking for favors. And that doesn't work because people can tell when you are being transactional. And transactional networking feels uncomfortable for everyone involved. Real relationships are built on mutual interest, shared experiences, and consistent engagement. They are built when you don't need anything, so that when you do need something, the relationship is already there. So in 2026, abandon the idea that you should network when you need a job. Instead, build relationships as a continuous practice. Connect with people in your industry, stay visible, share what you are learning, offer value where you can. Because when the time comes to make a move, the people who can help you are the people who already know you, trust you, and want to see you succeed. So there you have it. 5 pieces of career advice I want you to consciously leave behind as you move into 2026. Number 1, follow your passion. Number 2, hard work will be noticed. Number 3, there is a perfect career path. Number 4, stability comes from one employer. Number 5, network when you need a job. They all sound comforting. They just don't reflect how careers actually work today. And if you're serious about building a career based on pragmatism, not slogans, you need better ways of thinking about skills, positioning, visibility, and long-term career security. That's the shift I want you to make going into 2026. And I wish you successful career moves or career upgrades in the upcoming year. If this helped you rethink at least one assumption about your career, stay around. Subscribe for more practical and pragmatic career advice. Talk soon.